Welcome to Refinery Injury Podcast.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Refinery Injury Podcast with Brooks Harrison. Brooks is a Texas trial attorney dedicated to representing refinery and plant workers who suffer catastrophic injuries in explosions, fires, and chemical accidents across the South. I'm SeanOConnor, and today Brooks and I are talking about how long hours, demanding schedules, and pure exhaustion contribute to some of the most serious refinery accidents. Brooks, how you doing?
I'm great, Sean. Thank you for having me today.
You bet. You get enough rest?
Never.
It's relevant to today's conversation. You know, anyone who's worked in a refinery knows the hours are brutal. And for what you've seen with your clients, how does exhaustion start showing up on job sites, before an accident even happens?
I've always been told that exhaustion creeps in long before anybody calls it an accident. So it's the overtime, it's the working double shifts, it's the rush to hurry and finish the project or finish the shutdown. You start seeing small tails on the ground. Guys moving a little slower. They'll take twice as long to rig a scaffold because they're double checking every knot because they know they're tired. They know things are supposed to be moving quickly, but they're not. Paperwork. We've talked a lot about paperwork in the past, and paperwork gets sloppy. Permits get signed with wrong numbers or wrong coding, or doesn't get signed at all. Radios will go unanswered. It's inevitable. During a break, somebody may actually nod off and take a little nap, which is not uncommon at a refinery or anywhere. And and you sit down just for a minute, just to get off your feet, and then anything can happen in that instance because you're not on your game, and that whether it's somebody else or whether it's yourself, that's how people get put in harm's way. Oftentimes alarms that go off. We may be a little tired and ignore that alarm because it's probably nothing or whatever it may be. And but the site will look busy, and but you can tell the rhythm will be off out there, and I mean that's just a matter of nature of the beast, and that's something that has to be managed on a proper job site.
Yeah, I imagine if I'm out there, a contractor working at the refinery, and I'm tired, and I know it's not a hangover talk, and I'm tired. I've been working. There's a good chance probably that some of the other people around me, I know them, I work with them, I know they've been putting in the same hours. We're all dog tired.
That's it.
I've had a conversation with an attorney who works in the trucking business, and there's obviously prescribed hours behind the wheel before you have to take a break. Is that kind of thing exist at the refinery level?
The answer is yes. I mean, you do have your 40 hours a week. We do have our overtime. But oftentimes during a shutdown or during a big maintenance exercise, you're going to have folks in there, specialized experts at their jobs. You're going to have them in there working 16, 18 hours at a time. And I mean, those are stretches that are kind of crazy in hindsight after you think about it. I mean, that's where you run off and you start misreading gauges. That's where you forget to beat. If you're welding on a line, that's where you forget to beat up on one side or one little segment of it. It's just an over and over and over a problem that they have to deal with. Lockout, tagout is probably one of the most important aspects at any refinery unit. And lockout, tagout, I mean, I can talk about a case that occurred in Louisiana that I represented a family, and I mean there were two units being worked on side by side. It wasn't a confined space in either one. However, the unit to the right was being purged of hydrocarbons. The tower unit to the left was being cleaned out. So it had already been purged. So they were working ahead, I believe, one unit, purging it out. there was actually a massive line that was locked out, tagged out, because there was product in it. The refinery workers themselves, not the contractors, loosened a flange, injected some air into one side of it. H2S erupts from the flange, and it ends up spraying and gassing my client, who fell about 7 stories to his death. So that's a perfect example of what not to do.
I know, I mean, fatigue affects more than, reaction time. I'm wondering how does it change the way crews maybe communicate, especially when contractors from different companies are all trying to finish the same tasks, but okay, they're tired. What changes in communication and such are going to show up?
You oftentimes we've actually via litigation we end up getting transcripts of that communication that's produced, whether it's the contractors or whether it's the refinery itself. Radio traffic on their radios are 2 ways, or however they're communicating. They'll shorten up their responses to, yeah, everything's good, yeah, it looks good, rather than, like, line is blinded, lockout, tagout, verified, all clear. That's the more proper way that we would be saying it out at a refinery. But or either just skipping it altogether. It's like, yeah, they're looking at it, it's taken care of, let's move on. Such as like a pipe fitter tells the welder it's isolated without specifying which isolation point. I had a case that occurred. And of course, tempers shorten. Everybody out there is a manly man. There's not a lot of the opposite out there. And you're expected to do your job. You're expected to do it right. And sometimes we just physically can't do that with the wear and tear of, again, 16 to 18-hour days. Communicating and actually being completely vocal and taking safety seriously is a must, and literally all workers need to be concerned and be proactive with that.
Talk about the pressure that a worker might feel to take every hour that's made available, right? Whether for overtime or whatever it might be. How does that kind of workload pressure contribute to unsafe situations?
A lot of workers tell me that the only way they can make real money is with the overtime. So being that overtime is the way that they can really start monetizing that job, they'll jump at the opportunity, to work a shift after a 14-hour shift, because they get that extra per diem, and then they'll get double time and a half or double time, and that's just too good to pass out. You're out there to make money, you're out there to work, and you're out there to get home safely. That mindset turns fatigue management, honestly, into a personal choice and instead of a site rule, and that does happen a lot. And that's why I think it is incumbent upon the contractors themselves, the actual businesses that are the contractors, to make sure they're keeping their guys fresh, to make sure that they're getting the rest that they need, to make sure, because, I mean, again, it's a big project with a whole bunch of teams working together. We also do see safety meetings get shortened or skipped as things go along, as everything's going along great. We're in the middle of this shutdown, we're rolling, we're on target. And so that's when everything's going well is when you really need to be most concerned most of the time. That's when oftentimes you'll have near misses go unreported because everything's going so well and we're on target. Some folks they feel great pressure with the push to get this thing done and move on to the next job, and that pressure creates a culture where admitting you're exhausted, that feels like you're admitting that you can't do the job, or you're not man enough to do the job, or whatever.
I mean, again, and also just that unspoken hesitancy to, you've got X number of days without an incident posted there at the job site.
Every day
I don't want to be the guy to ruin the record.
Yeah. I mean, they even put that in the bathrooms.
When, I guess, inevitably an accident does occur, let's say, during an overnight shift or after a long stretch of hours, what parts of the early investigation help show that fatigue played a role?
You pull their timesheets. I mean, that's why they're there, so that you pull the timesheets. really anything over 12 hours a day or 60 or 70 hours a week, the warning light should be flashing. And then investigators should be looking at a fatigue management plan and or the lack of one, not even having one. And most of the times, I'll be honest, the really good contractors, yeah, they do have a fatigue management plan, and but most don't. Most don't, and you really should do your best to limit so many consecutive hours and get those guys off their feet, get them some rest, and and I mean that's the epitome of being safe is you're well rested, you're on point, and you know your protocol, you know what you've been told, what the logs are reading, you know what's being passed on to you, and then it's just you moving forward at that point.
I'm thinking, certain jobs inside the refinery, more than others, require that constant focus. Like you're in a confined space, working on high pressure systems or elevated, right? You're up high. How does exhaustion increase the risk in those specific situations? I mean, some of it's obvious, but what are some other factors?
Confined space work is it always requires a safety. So you're gonna need a safety on the outside. So they call those folks fire watch, pole watch, whatever it may be. And yes, that's where those folks are sitting outside, and those folks are counting who goes in and who comes out. So they're responsible for going through that. Um, they're also responsible for providing a smell test before they go back in to make sure nothing has leaked or weeped within that confined space. There's so much high pressure going on around you. So even if everything's locked out, tagged out within that confined space you're in, just like we talked about a moment ago, that valve that didn't seal all the way, and there may be that little drip. Well, that little drip can turn into a massive hydrocarbon explosion and blow that entire vessel or whatever the confined space is up, and you with it and everybody around you as well.
Interesting too, from the safety, you're working in a confined space, but you've got someone who, and of course you reach it, you can't smell that there's a leak because you're in there, you're swimming in that, right? And so then to have someone from the outside come in and be like, wait, I smell gas, or or whatever. That's an interesting,
Yes.
essential thing, obviously.
It absolutely is, and that's why you have that fire watch outside. Is
Yeah.
I mean, literally, they have the sniffers on you. You're wearing your sniffers too, but when you're in the middle of a process, you probably at moments, yes, they light up, yes, they make loud sounds. There could be a delay, and I've actually seen that a couple of cases where there were delays in the readings, and that causes problems too. Or you may not have, in being a contractor going in those types of confined spaces, you may have your sniffers and your equipment that is OSHA certified and may work over at refinery A, but you're at refinery B or refinery C, and you may need different type of equipment as well. And so that's where your
Different
contractor,
compounds. Yeah.
yeah, your contractor is responsible to you for that. Always ask those questions. Always make sure you have the right equipment for that job and for those chemicals that are being produced and refined out there.
We were talking a lot about fatigue, and I'm thinking that a lot of times you don't realize how tired you are until something goes wrong. So what signs do you see in cases where fatigue was building, it was building up long before the injury?
It's just like, I mean, we see that in sports. We see athletes over time, the fatigue sets in, and so it's subtle at first, and then it seems to move pretty quick. Guys that are usually the joker out at the site, they get their work done, they're safe, but they may be joking around. All of a sudden, they're irritable over nothing, and that's a frequent story I get to hear all the time. On the radio, they'll start repeating themselves. They forget they told you something and they tell you the second or third time, or they think they told you something they never did. Those things. You'll see tools being dropped. You'll see equipment not operating properly because somebody forgot to do A, B, or C. People standing in the same spot. Folks kind of just staring at a valve. I mean, that actually was one case where there was a fella who was probably way too tired, and it was out in Galveston County, and he stared at this valve, and then that staring and not being proactive ended up costing about 20 people their lives. So
Wow.
it's yeah, and I mean, it was he at the same time this fellow was going through a divorce, so he was more concerned to be on the phone up in his operator's shack talking to his divorce attorney than what was actually happening that did lead to multiple burns and deaths and several hundred people being severely injured.
Wrapping up for now, for workers who are moving from site to site across the Gulf Coast, what can they do? In a practical way to protect themselves when the schedule is grueling and the expectation is, these he-men are going to keep working no matter what.
They got to get that double time, and they got to keep those checks coming in and keep everybody happy at home. And yeah, I mean, they're not going to be able to fight a schedule by themselves. But once you're actually working within that schedule, there are some things you need to probably do. Track every single hour on your phone with timestamps and photos, sign-in sheets. When you hit that 12 hours out there on the job, I mean, don't be afraid to use your stop work authority and document exactly why. I mean, that you're fatigued and impaired safe performance, whatever that may be. Hydrate yourself. You got to take care of yourself. Eat real food on breaks. Instead of the energy drinks, try to eat some fruit and some healthy stuff. And also, like I said earlier, take some micro naps. Whenever you have a chance to get a break, take you a nap and do the best you can to any energy reserve that you have is going to be better for everybody else on the back end.
Yeah.
Know your OSHA rights. Fatigue is a recognized hazard through OSHA. No turnaround schedule overrides that. So no matter what, no turnaround schedule will override you being able to say, I am fatigued and I probably need a moment off. And at the end of the day, the overtime check won't cover a hospital stay or permanent disability. So know that. And really, seriously, the smartest guys I represent are the ones who have learned to say, you know what, I'm actually too tired to do this safely right now. And they say it out loud, they put it on paper, and they do it every damn time.
Got it. That's good. Good advice. And yeah, that long-term view, that like, yeah, we all need a little extra cash typically, but hold on, what's the hidden cost?
That's right. We're looking to move on to the next job, not just finish this job.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Brooks. Good to see you.
Thank you, Sean.
That's it for today's episode of the Refinery Injury Podcast with Brooks Harrison. If you or someone you love has been injured while working long shifts in a refinery or plant, visit refineryinjury.com to learn more about your options and how Brooks and his team can help. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to like or subscribe to the show. Maybe send a link to a buddy who could use the information. I'm SeanOConnor. Have a great day.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.